There is a moment that happens in silence, a moment when someone sits at their desk, staring at work they've already finished, and instead of feeling relief, they feel dread. Not because the work is bad, but because their mind whispers that it could be better, should be better, must be better. And so they start again erasing, rewriting, adjusting, perfecting. Hours pass, exhaustion sets in, but the work is never quite done because in their mind, done means flawless. If you've ever felt this way even once, then you already know what perfectionism feels like. It doesn't feel like excellence. It feels like a weight you carry everywhere, a standard you can never quite reach, a finish line that moves every time you get close.
Perfectionism is not about doing things well. It's about never doing them well enough. It's the quiet belief that your worth is measured by your output, that mistakes are evidence of failure, that anything less than perfect is unacceptable. And this belief doesn't just live in your thoughts, it lives in your body, in the tightness of your chest and you're about to submit something, in the sleepless nights replaying everything you said.
Psychologists describe perfectionism as a form of self-protection. On the surface, it looks like ambition. But beneath that surface lies fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being seen and inadequate. And here's the paradox. The more they try to avoid mistakes, the more catastrophic mistakes become in their mind. A single error isn't just a learning moment. It's proof that they're not good enough. Imagine a child bringing home a test. 95%. Most children would feel proud. But if that child has learned that love comes with conditions, they don't see 95%. They see the 5% they lost. They hear the question, what happened to the other 5 points? They internalize the message, good isn't good enough. Perfect is the minimum. And over time, this child builds their identity around achievement. They learn that their value is tied to performance, and what starts as a survival strategy becomes a prison. The classroom becomes the workplace, the test becomes the project, and unless something interrupts the cycle, the belief stays with them. I am only valuable and I am perfect. But here's what makes perfectionism so deceptive. It often looks successful. Perfectionists achieve. They work hard, they produce high-quality results. But if you could open up their internal world, you would see someone who never feels satisfied. Someone who lives in a constant state of anxiety because rest feels like falling behind. Perfectionists rarely celebrate their wins. When they succeed, they think, I should have done that easily. When they fail, they think, I knew I wasn't good enough. Success doesn't count. Failure counts double. And the cruelest part? They're often harder on themselves than anyone else would ever be. If a friend made a mistake, they would offer compassion. But when they make a mistake, they offer only shame. People who struggle with perfectionism develop patterns others don't notice. They procrastinate not out of laziness, but out of fear. If the work isn't started, it can't be judged, or they become obsessive, checking their work 10 times, 20 times, sacrificing sleep and joy in service of a standard that exists only in their mind. And perfectionism doesn't just affect work, it seeps into relationships. They become afraid to be vulnerable because vulnerability means showing imperfection. Research shows that perfectionists are at higher risk for anxiety, depression, and burnout. Why? Because their nervous system is in a constant state of threat. Their brain interprets imperfection as danger. For most people, stress comes in waves. But for perfectionists, stress is the baseline. They live in chronic vigilance, always scanning for what could go wrong. But here's what many perfectionists don't realize. Their standards are not objective truth. They are interpretations shaped by past experiences and unhealed wounds. A perfectionist looks in the mirror and sees everything that's wrong. Others look at them and see someone capable, talented, valuable. This distortion is not a character flaw, it's a psychological pattern, one that can be transformed. So where does healing begin? It begins with awareness, with recognizing that perfectionism is not a personality trait you were born with, but a coping mechanism you developed. It begins with asking not, how do I become perfect, but why do I believe I need to be perfect in the first place? Understanding the roots of perfectionism doesn't erase it, but it creates distance. It allows you to see perfectionism not as who you are, but as something you learned, and what was learned can be unlearned. Healing also requires redefining success. For perfectionists, success has always meant flawless execution. But what if success meant progress, not perfection? What if it meant trying, not achieving? There's a difference between healthy striving and perfectionism. Healthy striving is motivated by growth. Perfectionism is motivated by fear. One of the most profound shifts in healing perfectionism is learning to separate your worth from your work. For so long, you've believed that you are what you produce. But here's the truth. Your worth is inherent. It doesn't increase when you succeed and decrease when you fail. You are worthy of love not because you're perfect, but because you exist. This is perhaps the hardest belief for a perfectionist to internalize, because their entire identity has been built around the opposite message. But on the other side of this shift is freedom. Freedom to try without fear, freedom to fail without shame, freedom to be imperfect and still feel whole. If you recognize yourself in these words, if perfectionism has shaped your life, your relationships, your sense of self, then know this: you are not broken. You are someone who learned to equate love with achievement, and that learning made sense given what you experienced. But it doesn't have to define the rest of your story. You can unlearn the belief that you must be perfect to be loved. You can build a new relationship with yourself, based not on performance, but on presence. Because perfectionism is not your identity. It's a pattern you learned, and patterns can be transformed. So the next time your mind whispers that you could be better, should be better, must be better, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, is it wisdom or is it fear? And then, gently, courageously, choose differently. Not because you don't care, but because you're learning to care about something more important than perfection. You're learning to care about yourself. You are not defined by what you produce. You are not measured by your mistakes. You are a human being, complex and imperfect and infinitely worthy of love. You are enough. You have always been enough. And the moment you truly believe that, everything changes.